Hello, and today on Minute Podcast, Al Mashmaut, we have Yuval Goldschmidt, who arranged this interview, and Destiny. Hi.
Hello.
So, who's this puppet looks like?
We were looking at him. He's holding a book. He's got glasses, darker skinned. What do you got for me? You were going to give me a hint.
Thomas Sowell.
Oh, it's Thomas Sowell.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I don't. Okay.
Okay. So first question. Second question is, it's your first time in Israel, and I wanted to know what surprised you in your visit. What did you expect, and what did you see?
I'd say immediately, probably one of the things I most expected was for this place to be explosions everywhere. And I guess the explosions are only happening in the north and around the Gaza Strip right now. So
Only?
Less than I expected. It was not in Tel Aviv that I can hear. I guess I just overall expected it to be more violent, more of a war zone. But people here seem pretty chill, pretty happy in a lot of the different areas. So, yeah.
And what about you? Like, I know that Israel is usually really calm about explosions and about things that are happening, because if we wouldn't have been, it would be terrible living here.
Uh-huh.
So for you, or for like an American who comes here for the first time, you are just like in Rome, act like the Romans?
I'm just a bad person to ask for any question like that. I'm sure for a lot of people it'd be pretty crazy, but my ordinary life is pretty crazy, and it's fucking, if people want to blow bombs up, I guess it just adds to the excitement. So I spent a lot of time. One of the tours I did was around the Gaza Strip. I was at I think Kibbutz Azah, and then I went to the Nova Festival area, and the explosions are really loud down there. My friend went up to, I don't remember the name of the city, but he was on basically the border of where Hezbollah is, the border of Lebanon. So, yeah, there's a lot of booms, at least around the Gaza Strip. Yeah.
On the debate from January against Ben Shapiro, you said that to judge the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from an American perspective would be wrong. Could you explain why to judge it from like this kind of a big and influential country like the U.S. would be not as good as from the Israeli or from the Palestinian perspective?
I think that different societies are at different stages of, it can be development, it can be conflict, it can be economies. There's like a whole different set of things that could be going on. And they could be dealing with different issues in the past that might make them look at something in a particular way. And to take your particular history and then to look at it, your particular place and time, and then to project that lens and try to do the same analysis from other people, from your perspective, is just wholly inappropriate. A really good example of this in the Ukrainian-Russian war, or really for all of Eastern Europe. We've got a lot of people in the West who are very favorable towards communism and socialism, and maybe even in Western Europe, you've got students that are favorable towards that. People in Eastern Europe are not generally favorable towards that for a variety of reasons. Their histories are a lot worse with the Soviet Union. I know in Ukraine, they have a guy that they had considered a pretty heroic figure. I think it's Stepan Bandera. And obviously this guy, for periods of history, worked with the Nazis. And so in the West, we're like, oh, he's an automatic bad guy. And it's like, well, he was helping them fight the Soviets. It's like, well, that makes it even worse. The Soviets were communists. They were amazing. And well, no, not everybody feels that way, especially if you were forcibly incorporated into the Soviet Union with Russia. It doesn't feel the same way. And it's the same thing here, too. Like I was traveling with a friend. It was so funny. My camera guy asks me, he's like, if I see a black person here, can I ask them like where they're from? And that's such an American thing, because like it's saying...
but why not?
Well, because to say to a person like, well, where are you from is like an otherizing thing, and we consider it a microaggression. It sounds like I'm being sarcastic. I really do agree with this stuff. You shouldn't do that. I think in America, I think it's kind of a weird thing to do. But in other parts of the world, depending on like the people and the sensibilities and everything, it's not a bad thing at all.
Do you use the word Arabs in America?
No, that was a thing too that I had to break away from, because even studying the history, like saying Arabs it just feels racist. Right. It feels racist to say Arab. It feels racist to say Jews. It's just you just don't usually say those words. Right. You know, people of Judaism, maybe. No, you don't say that. But yeah, and these are like very surface level things. There are deeper level things too that are just far, far, far different. Yeah.
You're a big spokesman of Biden, and I want to ask, who do you think is better for Israel, Biden or Trump?
It's not really a matter of who's better for Israel. It's a matter of who's better for which Israeli. If you're, a strong Smotrich or Ben-Gvir supporter, I don't know if you'd like Biden that much. I don't know where you guys stand politically, but I imagine that Trump moving the embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing that, Trump supporting Netanyahu, I think in 2018, when he talked about defunding UNRWA and moving the money over to the UNHCR. The Abraham Accords, you probably view these very favorably. And then if you look at Biden and he's like, you guys, don't go into Rafah and, you guys need to, chill out, 24 hours, not enough notice, give them a week, whatever, like all these types of limitations that Biden's putting on probably feel pretty shitty. If you're very far right, or if you're right, I don't know, far right, whatever. The more left you go, the more you probably see Biden. I spent a lot of time at the Hostage Square protests a few days ago, and those people all loved Biden, which I like because I never meet people that like Biden. So yeah, I guess it probably just depends on where you're at politically as an Israeli. I will say also one thing that I did learn that is objectively fucking terrible about this country. You guys absolutely need to up the threshold for seating Knesset parties. My fucking God. Your political system is just a nightmare. Jesus.
What do you mean? Could you...
I figure in like a coalition government, if you get 100 seats, my guess would be that your major parties are like 40 seats each, and then you got like a few smaller parties. The Likud is like... It's like 28 seats or something.
Yeah.
Your major parties are very small. And then you've got to have all this coalition building. And I don't know, I just feel like it lends itself to
but you just come from the perspective that first past the post should get all the votes, like in America. So in all of the other states, they don't have this kind of method. So you have many, many, many small parties. So it's totally normal.
Also, you can only choose out of two options. And we have
primaries.
Quite a wider options.
Yeah, I guess, we've got primaries. You can choose candidates before they get to the major elections. I guess the scariest thing in this country is I feel like very small parties that otherwise wouldn't have that big of a say end up getting, positions in the government, ministers that wield more power than I think they would. Like, I'm curious, what do you guys think? What are the percentage of the population that actually supports, like Smotrich or Ben-Gvir?
Exactly like the mandates that they have in the Knesset. We think that they represent, like if they have 4 mandates, so it's about 6% of the population supports them. But, the big problem in Israeli politics is not that small parties have too much power, is that we have so little of small parties because it's just like a monopoly or a cartel, where you have less of the competition, so you have a monopoly. So in Israeli, we have too little parties.
Oh, so you think you need even more small parties?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well.
We have, if you gain more than 3%, so you get represented, but if you're not, so you don't.
Yeah, it's something that you have to consider while learning the theory of games. It's a branch in mathematics.
Yeah, game theory. Yeah.
Yeah, game theory. So I want to hear your take about hostages and deals with Hamas. What do you think? How can we rationally look at the deals with the terror organization? כמה מכם פנו אליי לגבי זה שהם עשו מנוי למידע, אבל לא קיבלו קישור לעל המשמעות פלוס. אז רציתי להבהיר את הדרגות של המנויים לאתר מידע. יש לנו מנוי ב-25 שקלים, המאפשר כניסה למפגש הזום השבועי ביום חמישי בשעה 9. מי שעושה מנוי ב-60 שקלים גם מקבל גישה לעל המשמעות פלוס. פודקאסט עם מעל 200 פרקים שאתם יכולים להאזין לו דרך נגן הפודקאסטים המועדף אליכם, ומי שעושה מנוי ב-120 שקלים גם חשוף לעל המשמעות פלוס, גם נכנס למפגשי הזום השבועים, וגם חשוף לכל התוכן פרימיום שגדי טאוב ועקיבא ביגמן מפרסמים למנויים שלהם. אז אני כמובן ממליץ על 120 שקלים, ואפילו יותר למי שיכול, כדי לעזור לנו להפיק את הפודקאסט ולהשפיע על חייהם של אלפי אנשים. תודה רבה.
How can you rationally look at I think that how you look at any deal, I think that deals with Hamas are pretty simple to know what you want or don't want. I think that it's a question of first principles in terms of what should Israel's goal be for the war. Once you have that figured out, then what a ceasefire looks like should be.
And from your perspective, like you said that you should support Biden or Trump according to what's the your political view on politics, on geopolitics.
I mean, I support Biden I think that Israel should support Biden because Biden at least has a vision for the Middle East. And I think there are too many leaders that are short-sighted. When I look at people like Trump, I think that he's entirely narcissistic. He's in it for himself and for the photo ops. I think that Netanyahu is in it to hold a government together, to keep himself as the prime minister. These people don't seem to have the interest of the country in mind long term. That's the feeling that I get. But
So about deals,
but like what should a final deal look like with Hamas?
I don't know, maybe final deal, maybe like this deal that is on the table right now with Hamas about releasing all kind of terrorists who did atrocities against civil population and getting our babies, our mothers and fathers back home.
I think that, there are so many things. I think a deal should probably be reached sooner rather than later, but for things that are unrelated, I think even to the deal. So one thing that I've learned while being here that I think is really tragic is I think that the revocation or the freezing of all the work permits from the West Bank, I think is a huge mistake. And the mistrust that Jewish Israelis have to Arab Israelis, not buying from them anymore, not hiring them for services, I think is also a huge mistake. And I think a ceasefire deal quicker in the Gaza Strip would alleviate that pressure more on the policy side and on the Jewish feeling side. So, but that doesn't really have to do with Hamas. It just has to do with...
But you know, after October 7th, like, I wouldn't mind to buy a cell phone who was manufactured by a Palestinian manufacturer factory. I don't mind, but bringing him into my house, you know, fixing a door, setting up my cameras, or doing all kind of those things, maybe in the worst case scenario is intelligence for the enemy. Because after October 7th, in Kfar Aza, they said that those people who worked as gardeners, as people who do all kind of things in renovation and stuff like that in Kfar Aza, said that this house belongs to the guy with a gun. This house belongs to 3 babies and 1 mother, so she's on her own. So the intelligence from the people who worked there was a huge success, considering Hamas and the atrocities it did.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think there's good reason to be nervous about the citizens of Gaza, especially considering that Hamas is the government there. But I don't think that that's the same as what happens in the West Bank. I think that... Do you want to do something faster?
Yeah, so also I live here in Jerusalem, and on a daily basis I encounter encounters with Arabs, which is hard. Like, they're sometimes, many of the encounters are very aggressive. Like, just regular daily basis encounters are really aggressive. So it's not only terrorism, or it's just scary for women, for men, for children. Yeah,
I understand that, but like an aggressive and a scary encounter for you is what, a Palestinian being loud or raising his voice or shouting at you.
So I could walk on the street, and then in the car, like, he can open his window and like scream at girls or honk or whatever.
Yeah, which sounds scary. A scary encounter from the Palestinian perspective is the IDF rolling into Ramallah and torching, an entire food market, or destroying a building, or raiding a home, or throwing flash grenades into homes, or arresting people and detaining them for 6 months without trial. Or like, I'm not trying to downplay your particular stuff, because it all plays into it. But there's like definitely like both sides have reasons to feel, I guess, pain from the other. And to minimize one side and to exaggerate another, I feel like both sides do this quite often. I think it's good to pay attention to what's happening on both sides. The one thing that shocked me, one of the ladies that I speak to down at you have like Hostage Square, where the Times was put up.
Tel Aviv.
Yeah. One of the things that shocked me listening to some of the people talk there, and I started to ask a lot more older Israelis about this, a lot of Israelis that lived in, I don't know if you'd call it the South or the Southwest, like near the Gaza Strip or even in Tel Aviv, have stories of like, before disengagement, before the Second Intifada, going down to the Gaza beach, hanging out with the Palestinians, going shopping, talking to people, that was a fairly common thing, and they felt good about it. And the more that type of stuff happens, I think the better it is for everybody, because it helps people see each other as human more. It helps to have like societies working together. And it does things like materially as well. People are going over there spending money, giving people jobs. They've got things to do. Now you've got, like with the West Bank closed off, well, not only are these people now not seeing Jews anymore, the only places they're seeing them are when people would tell them horrible things about them. Now they also have less work to do, which is always horrible for young men. They've got less money. They can't build as much. Like, it just compounds, makes everything so much worse.
Yeah, so you know what moved me from the left to the right was on 2006, I was in a delegation to Wales with like 20 Israelis and 20 Palestinians. And I was really in the hard left. And we were talking, you know, we saw each other face to face. We did a lot of training together and play games and stuff like that. And when we sat down to deal about the conflict, I asked them, okay, I'm willing to give you everything you want, like 67 borders, right of return, whatever you want. And they said, no. One state will be Jewish-free, like Judenrein in German, will be without any Jews. This will be the Palestinian state. And the other state will be a Sharia law state, which you will live as dhimmi. You will live as a...
Second-class citizen.
Yes, second. And I was like, okay, so if this is your last deal that you're going to offer me as someone who wants peace, as someone who wants to talk to Israelis, so really, fuck you. I don't want to this kind of living as
second-class citizen, where another person has control over everything you do and what goes in and out of your country, and because that's what the Palestinians look like right now, right?
But we are not going to be secure as Jews, as history once again proved, as second-class citizen. We tried it for 2,000 years. They have another country, which is Palestinian, 90% Palestinian, which is the Transjordan, and they can live there.
The other Arabs,
I mean, you've read A Jewish Nation, I'm guessing, right?
What?
Or A Jewish State?
Yeah, Jewish State.
Okay.
Yeah,
I read this recently.
You didn't start.
When I look at Jewish people, they seem like very pragmatic. Like I feel like a Jewish person can look at a bad situation and see like, okay, this is bad. Maybe I can like get this and this, and then I need to get out and fuck it. And a Jewish person will like make the best out of a bad situation. I feel like for an Arab, I feel like when they look at a situation, if they leave it, it has to be with their honor intact, and that seems to be a really important part in like a cultural difference between Israel or Jewish people and Arabs. What is your perception of the war in '73? Do you think that was a great success for Israel?
I think that it was militarily, it was a great success, but from the honor and dignity point of view, it was their great success.
Yeah.
Sadat really understood the Israeli public and what it can do to him, or even to his own public. Just crossing the canal. That's it.
Yeah. And I think that some people say that war needed to happen to adjust Israeli expectations downwards, that Israel wasn't always going to be able to win every war in 4 days, never be taken by surprise, never lose any battles, and that it helped move the Arab honor and integrity upwards. That the Arabs could feel like, the first few days of this war, we had them almost right where we wanted them, and it put them in a better place to accept peace, and it put Israel in a better place to accept peace. And for some reason, it feels like sometimes the sides can't understand each other, they can't communicate with each other, and it takes some big event where it's like, okay, well, finally we can understand this particular thing. And there is like this, I'm looking retrospectively, so I can say, oh, obviously, right? But there's like this ebb and flow to, there's no peace is happening with the Palestinians, there's a general discontent. The first intifada kind of like boils over from that, and then it stops because of the Oslo Accords. And the interim agreement comes and goes, Oslo 1, Oslo 2, Wye Memorandum, Camp David, Taba, failure, and then the second intifada, right? And then after that, you get disengagement. There's like this ebb and flow of like peace leads to war, leads to peace, leads to war. And something has to happen to where, I feel like the Palestinians, when I go through, I went through 2 refugee camps, and I went through their cities.
Well,
oh, fuck, you're going to make me...
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
In the West Bank. In the West Bank, right?
They were near Ramallah. One was near Ramallah, one was near East Jerusalem.
Okay.
And as I go through these places, one thing that we don't understand in the West is refugee camps are not places where people are poor and starving.
Intense.
They've got iPhones, they've got nice haircuts, they've got cars, they look nice. And the Palestinian people are the second most literate Arab group in the world. The education, for all the horrible things that UNRWA might have done, and trust me, there's no shortage of criticism of them, they've done a very good job at educating them in some things, and in other ways I understand we disagree. But these are people that are primed for success in a lot of ways. But there has to be some agreement that can be reached that has that honor, integrity thing intact. Because when I talk to any Palestinian, and maybe there are more that I haven't spoken to, I can't speak to everybody, obviously. I've probably spoken to 20 or 30 in extensive conversations the past few weeks. Like, you ask them, like, I can give you everything, okay? You can have the biggest house, everything you want. Would you rather have this here, okay? This huge house in Nablus, okay? With all the running water, Israel can't turn off, everything you want. Or do you want to move back to Jaffa? I can't even finish this sentence. Like, I want to move back. I want to go home and start over. I'll start over where my grandfather came from. There has to be a way to work a deal out there where it's honoring that integrity. Even if it's Israel saying, listen, we're only going to let 10,000 of you in, but we recognize the right of return for everybody, and we fucked up. It has to be something.
So
yeah,
you have 25 hours left in Israel. So I really recommend you, if you have the time, if you have the capacity, drive on Road 60. Road 60 is the main road of the West Bank, right? From Jerusalem to Ramallah, to Nablus, to Jenin, and all the settlements along the way. And you will see in about the hour of 6, 7, 8 p.m. when it's already dark, you will see that about 80 or 90% of the windows are dark. It means that I want to judge the people by the way they vote in their legs. The people you talk to, like they are saying maybe beautiful words about respect and honor and going back to Jaffa, but most of them, I think, want a peaceful life, and because maybe some really violent groups in the Palestinian population want war, want terror, want jihad, so they just live. So most of the windows are black. I don't know if you saw it while you were driving. It's not because of lack of electricity. We give them electricity in a free price, actually. But it's because they left, most of them. Not most of them, but...
I mean, the West Bank population is only getting bigger, isn't it?
No, it's not, because we can't really rely on the population number that they give us, because the bigger the number will be, the bigger the threat on the demographic going to be if we want a democratic country. So this is why we can judge people only by what they do and not what they say. And this is a big problem talking to people. You came here in order to talk to people, but sometimes you just need to look at the facts.
I understand, but what are the facts on the, I agree with you also in terms of you need to look at what people do instead of what they say. But if we look at what they do, there have been deals on the table that are offering almost everything to them that they're not taking. So something must be missing. The Clinton parameters were, I think most people at this point agree, were ingenious. The Taba Summit, the offer for, bartering on holy sites and everything, Olmert's proposal in 2008 with Abbas. A lot of these proposals, I think I've heard almost everybody say that Olmert's proposal had almost everything, that Olmert had almost everything that was needed. But there's that component of the honor or the integrity. I don't know what it is, but something there is missing. And I think that one thing that's happened historically is that Israelis and Arabs sometimes they miss each other. They don't understand each other. And one of the things that I hear a lot, and this is a Western issue I think that Israelis have, because now you join us, is sometimes I think Israelis will look at Palestinians and go, okay, well, if you guys just have the money and you guys just want to live good lives, you'll be fine, right? But then you're saying this to a person, 2000, 2004, these people would strap vests on themselves and explode themselves on buses. These people something is driving them more, some larger thing.
It's called religion.
Yeah, I know, you were going to say Islam. Something is driving them more than just a desire for a better life. And I think that and that was true even of the early Jews, though. There's some part of you guys that understand that, because there were Jews that left Europe that had decent lives. Sure, there was anti-Semitism, but those early days of toiling in the fucking fields, of trying to bring the water from the north, of taking these shitty sand. You've all seen the pictures of Jaffa or Tel Aviv or whatever? Yeah, the giant sand dunes. Yeah, those weren't fun fucking jobs. That wasn't an upgrade in life. For those first 20 years or whatever, it's probably fucking horrible.
So actually, I do understand them. I don't understand people that are blowing themselves up in a bus, but I do understand that they can think of an afterlife which is better than this life, and they have to do jihad in order to go there and be happy, or that God will be happy from what they do.
Well, I don't think it's not that. I just think it's that the situation isn't improving. And if things look hopeless, I mean, hopelessness does, I think, really bad things to people's minds, and people will kill themselves, kill other people. I just think it's a bad place to be in. Okay.
So what do you think is a good solution for the conflict, for a big solution?
I feel like there are, on a small level, I feel like there are, I think more and more integration, I think, is really good. Something that, embarrassingly, I've said that, I didn't even know this until like 2 months ago. I didn't even know that Arabs lived in Israel. I didn't even know that until like 2 months ago. And it's not like you have like 2% or 3% of your population or something. You have 20% of Palestinians live in Israel. That's amazing. That should be like a propaganda figure.
And how come you didn't, like, I don't blame you, but how come nobody knows this fact? That we have...
Because I feel like every time Israelis talk about Palestinians, they're shitting on them. I just hear negative things. I mean, why nobody...
No, come on. But like, we have Knesset members, we have doctors, we have supreme judges.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't heard about that more, but it's probably one of the most tremendous things ever. I was just talking earlier with a friend where, like, of all the radical Muslims in the world that are primed to hate somebody, these are the perfect people to want to kill their neighbors. You live close to each other. There is an occupation, you know, in some, whether you believe it or not, there's something going on. There is religious differences. You've got Muslims and Jews. You've got, like, differences in wealth. You've got unlimited international fight. Like, they have every tool in the world to be radical, evil, hateful, destructive. And, you know, on October 7th, there was no third intifada. You know, for as many faults as he has, Mahmoud Abbas has managed to tell people the thing that Arafat never could bring himself to do is to not fight, you know?
Maybe he didn't say it. Maybe he didn't order them to fight, but he didn't he didn't say any word against the massacre on October 7th.
Maybe not on October 7th in particular.
No,
but there is absolutely a difference between
he didn't
Mahmoud Abbas and between Arafat. You can see it. You can see it in the towns. You can see the Palestinian Authority. You can see it that Arafat celebrated the Second Intifada. Or some argue that he planned parts of it, right?
He did.
Yeah, Abbas is not the same. The man wears a suit, shaves himself, he goes and he'll sit down and he'll break bread, even though he hasn't signed a deal. Arafat showed up to the Oslo Accords wearing his fucking military uniform. Yeah, fuck this guy.
And even to Nobel Prize, he went his...
He did, yeah. They got their Nobel Prize for him.
And the gun. He had a gun showing off his gun.
Yeah, Abbas is a definite improvement. And I understand that it's not always like the best thing, but something I've heard from so many different people, from Olmert, from Balin, from Ben-Ami in this trip. I hear this saying over and over again: you don't make peace with friends, you make peace with enemies. And Abbas has problems, the PA has problems, but it's such an improvement from Arafat.
Yeah, but the continuation of this sentence is: you make peace with defeated enemies, not with enemies that has hope, like defeating you or massacring you or doing the October 7th once and once again while they can, if they can. So, you know, for Israel, there's no second opportunity of failing of October 7th in a bigger scale. We don't have this... We can't risk our lives, you know. I live. If you just go out the door, you will see that we live just next to an Arab village where lots of terrorists went outside and killed Jews. You can't hide from this fact.
Wait, where are we right now?
We're just between the Mount Scopus and the French Hill, which is Jerusalem, and just between you have Issawiyah. And if you will Google Issawiyah, and you can see that many terrorists went from Issawiyah and did all kind of terrorist attacks. And, you know, there is no border, there is no fence, there is no nothing between us and Issawiyah. It's about a 3-minute walk, not 3 minutes by car.
Do you think that the Palestinians that live in Israel, do you think that in general they're less radicalized and more willing to work in society than the Palestinians in Gaza?
Yeah, of course, but...
Okay, and do you think that the Palestinians in the West Bank in general are more willing and able to work than the Palestinians in Gaza?
I will say yes to all of your questions.
Okay,
but
the only reason I bring these two things out... And
no, but let me finish.
Well, go ahead,
because I want... Yes, but if they have only 10% of radical Islamists who want to attack us, wants to do another massacre like October 7th, so I can't rely on the majority, on the 90%, because they are also afraid from this minority. And the Islam population all around the world is more radical towards terrorism than any society on the planet.
That's true. The only reason I point out the difference between Palestinians living in Israel, Palestinians in the West Bank, and Palestinians in the Gaza Strip is because I think that the populations can and they have dramatically changed. And it doesn't have to be impossible for a change to happen. I think that like when you look in 2011 when the Muslim Brotherhood took over and that the letter was written to
2007 maybe.
Was it 2007 or 2011?
2006 there was the elections and Hamas won, and then Hamas...
No, I'm saying in Egypt. I'm sorry.
Oh, in Egypt.
In Egypt,
okay,
I think it was 2011. Yeah, when the Muslim Brotherhood took over, and there was a letter written to, I forget the names. I think Perez was the president at the time. There was a letter written saying that they would essentially calling him like a friend or whatever. Look forward to looking for. And this was the Muslim Brotherhood, right? But because Egypt had a peace agreement with Israel, they honored that peace agreement. And when Iran, for the first time, I believe in all of history, shot an unprecedented barrage of missiles at Israel, Jordan and Saudi Arabia helped. I think that's a really big deal. Just Jordan is what, 70, 80% Palestinians?
Yeah.
That's a really big deal. It's a really big moment. It's really important. And I think it shows that there's something more going on than this Islamic, Judaic, eternal war, infinity war, Avengers or whatever that can never be solved. And whatever is happening here, and I don't think you guys realize, I don't know if anybody realizes it, but whatever's happening here between Muslims and Jews has been such a tremendous amount of progress from 2004 even, that it would be sad to walk all of that back because of these fuckheads in the Gaza Strip. In my opinion, I think it would be tragic.
So, talking about radical Islam, do you think there's a difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism?
I think the motivation is quite different. In practice, it kind of looks the exact same. So it really just depends on...
הרבה מכם שאלתם אותי לגבי מעשר כספים וגם לגבי סעיף 46. אנחנו כרגע עובדים על סעיף 46, אבל הדבר היותר מעניין זה ששאלתי את הרב שרקי לגבי מעשר כספים, והוא אמר לי שכמובן אפשר לתרום חלק ממעשר הכספים לפודקאסט על המשמעות. אז מי שזה מעניין אותו ומי שרוצה לתמוך בעשייה הציבורית שלנו, מוזמן לתמוך גם במעשר כספים או לשאול את הרב שלכם. Could you elaborate? What's the motivation? What's how it looks?
Well, in practice, like if a guy walks up to you and he shoots you in the head, and he's like, well, I killed this guy because he was a Jew, and then the guy's like, well, actually, I just shot you because you have glasses on, and I hate people with glasses. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't really care. You're dead. It's like, okay, well, I think that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism end up looking identical because anti-Semites will say things like, I want to kill all the Jews. And anti-Zionists will say things like, well, if somebody does kill all the Jews, it's because you guys deserve it because of what you've done in the past to Palestinians. And the reason why, though, it's important, so in practice, it ends up looking basically identical. But the reason why it's important to understand that the motivations are different is because how you alleviate the concerns of both people is vastly different. For an anti-Semite, I don't know, you'd have to go through some huge process of de-radicalization or, well, why the fuck do you hate Jewish people? Or what do we have to do here? For like a far left person who's looking at like oppressor-oppressee dynamics, none of that matters to them. You have to like come at it from a different angle. But I will say that like looking at the Palestinians, looking at the death tolls, sitting and waiting at the Kadibaya, what the fuck is the checkpoint going in to East Jerusalem from... what's it called? I can't pronounce any.
There are many.
There's a big one that goes into East Jerusalem.
There are many checkpoints in and out.
Okay. I'm just saying that when you look at the status of all these things, when you look at the country of Israel next to Gaza, next to the West Bank, there's no amount of truth or fact, even if it is entirely true. I believe most of it is the Israeli argument that is going to appeal to an ordinary person looking at the situations on both sides. There's just nothing that you can say. It's always going to look horrible.
Yeah. What's your perspective on groups like Queers for Palestine who will be thrown from high buildings if they were in Gaza?
I don't think about them. I think they're very stupid.
There's not what to say about all of the ideology of campuses and what you see in the progressive West is really affecting our conflict with the Palestinians. And like some people would say that you are progressive, and some people would say that you are pro free markets and pro Israel, and that it doesn't really go together.
I mean, that's a whole other thing. I don't think being progressive. I've got social views, but I mean, like economically, I don't think they have to necessarily clash too much. I think that when you're trying to make your social views and economic views come together, you become like a socialist or communist. That's a not relevant thing.
And like your profile picture on WhatsApp is with a gun, like it's,
I like
it's not
guns.
something. Yeah, but
I do a lot of different things. I'm I'm an eccentric, hard to box in person, but yeah.
So, what's your take on Israeli politics? You said about Netanyahu that he's taking, like he's only looking at the mirror and he wants to be the prime minister. And
Why that was for Trump. Netanyahu, I think I would have spent a lot of time. I know like the history, the foreign policy. I don't know as much about your domestic politics. I've learned a lot more about that as I've been here.
Yeah, and Smotrich, Ben Gvir.
Mm-hmm. My impression was always that Netanyahu was a very far-right leader. That was just the impression I had. Now I really just think that he's a very weak leader. I think that he's very good at bringing people together and to work together in like a coalition-style government, and that's it. But then he becomes a slave to that, and I don't know if he's capable of moving people with him like a leader can. I think that he's more kind of like he follows the population, he tries to hold together his coalition, and he's kind of a slave to, wherever the tides may push. That's the impression that I get of him. Yeah.
Okay. You have about more than 700,000 followers on YouTube, and many millions are following you and maybe inspired to be like you. What moves you, like when you wake up in the morning, or what moves you towards what you do, communication, and your messages that you put publicly?
For me personally, I have a genuine curiosity about the world, about people's perspectives, and I think that people can do a much better job at building reasonable, factual arguments. I wish that people would understand more of themselves and how their minds work, that oftentimes if, 9 people around you are saying a particular thing, you're probably going to follow it because it's really hard not to, because if you don't, they're going to not like you, and that's a lot to deal with. People are nowhere near as rational as they think they are. I think people think that brains are evolved to seek truth through everything else, and they're not. They're evolved to survive and then to seek pleasure. And oftentimes that pleasure is oriented around our survival. But like we live in a world that is way more complex than the jungles, of old, and we need to be aware of the cognitive pitfalls we have so that we can kind of adapt our mind and develop it to move forward and be better participants in society. I think that the Western world was kind of built on democracies, and democracies had this underlying fundamental assumption of an informed voter. Funnily enough,
which is false, actually.
Possibly, yeah. I think Herzl said that there would need to be some sort of monarchy because the idea of solving complex issues with yays and nays, or ayes and nays, I think he said, would be ridiculous. So it was kind of fun. That was in 1900 or the late 19th century he said that. So, and obviously the world's even more sophisticated today. So if you want to be a participating member of a democratic society, you have all sorts of amazing positive and negative rights that are granted to you. But with those rights come some level of responsibility as well. Every child has heard this from a parent. When you start driving, you have the ability, the privilege of being able to drive anywhere you want, but you have the added responsibility of making sure you're driving safely. And I feel like right now we're driving our democracy without any responsibility for any of the drivers.
So your job is to conclude or to simplify the messages. Like not everyone has the privilege of coming here for a few days, of talking to generals, politicians, being in the both sides of the war, and so this is your job to simplify, actually, right?
Maybe
or to chew, because the informed voter is a false, is a false idea, because not everyone has the curiosity that you have the time, the energy, the resources, the intelligence, and we need that we will get the evidence and the facts simplified and tell us what to do, tell us who to vote.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that hard. I think that people in my position make it a lot harder than it actually is. I think there was a physicist, Richard Feynman, who talked about if you understand anything, you should be able to explain it to, a 5 or 6-year-old. I largely believe that. Now, there might be really complicated things, like way off into quantum mechanics.
Like the Palestinian-Israeli
I don't think it's as complicated as people say it is. I think the people say complicated, but I think whenever they don't want to learn or say anything. I'm going to be honest, actually. Israel-Palestine is nice because your history is very short, right? Like, truly, if you want to go back not to trigger the crazy Zionist, but you're going back to like 1880, okay? For the most part, to like catch up on almost everything.
Yeah, that's okay.
And from like 1880 to like 1920, there's not too much happening. And then like all of your history is about 100 years old, which is nice. And there's not very many players. You've got like 3 major countries around. You've got like, you got your Syria, your Jordan, and then you've got Egypt, and then you've got Israel. And that's about it, right? Not too many leaders to keep track of. For the most part, you can learn a lot about it. I think when people say it's complicated, they just don't want to read anything at all. And what's complicated is that both sides seem to have red lines that are crossing each other's red lines. That seems to be the really difficult part. But people in my position are unwilling to do any of the work to even remotely understand any part of it. And so if you're an average citizen and you're listening to somebody in my position and, we're saying a bunch of fucking stupid shit, well, then they're going to believe a bunch of dumb shit. And that's a problem that people in my position can be doing a much better job dealing with.
So now is after midnight, and I really want to thank you for coming for Israel, for your curiosity, which I think is remarkable. And I wish most of the people in the world have curiosity of visiting places which they have a conflict of even caring about what's happening abroad. And I really want to thank Yuval Goldschmidt, who arranged this interview. So thank you very, very much. Thank you. And this was us on Meaning podcast על המשמעות. תודה רבה.
Thank you very much.
Okay.